Hey everyone, Jazz Piano College, here to talk about the most hated chord, especially by beginners, the diminished chord. And a lot of times, we'll be working on a classical piece or something and we'll get to this chord that is a diminished chord, usually in Chopin or something, and I'll say, what is that chord? Is that major or minor or something else? And of course, it's something else. It's a diminished chord. And diminished chord is unique in that it has a perfect structure. And it doesn't look that way on the piano, but if you look inside your piano, you'll see that every note of the diminished chord is equally spaced. And then, they can disguise themselves because sometimes there's only 3 notes. And the interesting thing about diminished chords, of course, is when there's only when you take one of those notes out, then all of a sudden it can become lots of different chords. It could be an A7th chord, for instance. And oftentimes a diminished chord is used as a dominant. In this case, maybe it's an A7th with a flat 9. But, we're looking at it as a diminished chord. Now, if you really want to deep dive into the diminished chord and all the things that you can do with it, I encourage you to watch one of my most popular videos, which would be a deep dive or whatever it's called into the diminished scale. It's got like 300,000 views or something like that. And I show you a lot of patterns like that, or, some kind of crazy stuff like that, or just, how to use it in a 2-5-1. There it was as a C7th chord. There's our diminished chord and the scale that's appropriate like that. But, I'm not going to explain it all here. Go watch that deep dive on the diminished chord. There's really only 3 unique diminished chords because you see, because they're evenly spaced, by the time we start moving it up and we get to this one, well, it's exactly the same chord that we started with, right? So, and a lot of old charts, you'll see a diminished chord and the bass note of the diminished chord just doesn't seem to make sense. And realize that this chord, for instance, could be called G diminished. You can call it B flat diminished, C sharp diminished, or E diminished. And so when you see a diminished chord, especially in an old chart, don't worry so much about which note's on the bottom. Just make sure that whatever note they're calling out, that's in the chord, all right? If it says B flat diminished, just make sure the B flat's in there. Go minor thirds in either direction. And then whatever note you have on the bottom, it should be kind of it flows smoothly into the next chord. So if it's a chord like, you're on A minor, and then there's a diminished chord, G sharp diminished, or A flat diminished, and then it's going to G minor, well, that's nice and smooth. But sometimes the chord will be written like A minor, D diminished, and then G. So, you probably wouldn't come all the way down here and go D diminished and then back up to G minor. So, make the root movement smooth, if possible, or just make it sound good. It doesn't always have to be perfectly smooth. Don't take the bass note of a diminished chord too seriously. It could be one of the other 3 notes and it work out just as well, maybe better.